that you was dead. How can you disbelieve in Allah, seeing that you was dead and He gave you life? So did Allah create death for us as a life, or did Allah create life for us for death? We know in the Quran that Allah Ta'ala says that every soul, that every child of Adam will taste death. The hadith of the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah humbled the son of Adam with death and made the world an abode of life. Listen, we're not really taking this thing seriously. You know, because the reason why we picked this also, because it talks about the trials that Allah Ta'ala put on us, right? And a lot of times people get in a quagmire of thought where they say, well, you know, this is where they are leaning on the verge of agnosticism, right? Where, well, if there is a God, then why would Allah allow so much suffering in the world? Look at this stuff that just happened in Florida, right? Now, if you remember what we said, Allah Ta'ala says that if you are strong in faith, that He increases the severity of your punishment or your trials. Some of us look at that as a punishment, that every test that we have is a punishment for us, but it's just a trial. And Allah Ta'ala, through the Prophet ﷺ, said that those trials that we have, the severity of those trials, are purification for us in this world for the next. So you would say, okay, well, look, well, if Allah is a loving God, then why would He allow some crazy maniac to walk into a school and shoot up children? The same reason why mankind will not take food and water to Darfur. The same reason, because there's no faith within the human being. So we said, the Prophet ﷺ said that if there's a weakness within us, then Allah Ta'ala trials us or tries us to that particular mode. Brothers, please move up. So the Prophet goes on to say that Allah humbled the son of Adam with death and made the world an abode of life, and then made an abode of death, and made the hereafter a recompense, and then an abode of eternal abiding. In other words, Allah Ta'ala says that if we get past the first three, then we will have everlasting life in the next life. And it will be filled with peace, and there will be no trials. But now, if Allah Ta'ala is not, subhanAllah, Allah Ta'ala states that He has dominion over the heavens and the earth, and that He created death first, and then from death He created life. And then He will cause us to die again, and then He will raise us up again. So now, where is your hope? Is your hope in this life? Is all of your cards are being laid out in this life? Is what you are trying to achieve the best in this life or the best in the hereafter? The trials from Allah can be considered an aspect of Allah's mercy by ways of purification. The Prophet ﷺ was asked, which human beings suffer the greatest trials? The Prophet ﷺ said, the most that are like him in behavior, the ones that are most like him in behavior, and the ones who are most like them in behavior will suffer the greatest trials in this life. Dear beloved Muslims, what we are seeing and what we are going through as a ummah is by the grace of Allah Ta'ala. And everything, if you have a pessimistic point of view, you would say or look at these things as being hardships. But if you have an optimistic point of view, you will see the mercy in everything that we go through. There are Nabi stories, prophet stories in the Quran. And each and every one of them had to go through a trial, had to go through a point of purification. So now, if the Anbiya of Allah Ta'ala had to go through a form of purification in this world in order to deliver Allah Ta'ala's message, how do we think that we can escape any trials or tribulations in this life as a form of purification to get closer to Allah because of the words that was brought to us from Allah Ta'ala? So we can't escape it. So that means that we have to be of the mind frame that we have to live in order to die. Allahu Akbar. We have to live in order to die. And death is a relief from this world, from the trials. But if we don't die right, that death can be an abode of hell for us, and it starts in the grave. But see, this is where selfishness and ego gets checked. Alhamdulillah, thank you. Selfishness and ego get checked because, you know, death has no ambiguity in it. Death don't have no, well, I'm going to take this color first, or I'm going to take this nationality first, or I'm going to take these type of people first. Nah, death ain't like that. When Malaika Mulk comes, when Allah sends him, Allah says in the Quran that he does not waver in his duties. He does exactly what Allah Ta'ala says. Now, I'm going to tell you also, you can say, okay, well, man, I'm saying some things, but he ain't connecting nothing for me yet. I'm going to tell you why in the second part. Because we all have to check our hearts. Allah Ta'ala says that the believer can contain him only in his or her heart. If we do not check our hearts, believe me, we will have a hard life, and we will try to control things of life that we have no control over. Remember, Allah Ta'ala says that He is the originator of the heavens and the earth, and that He has dominion and power over all things. Now ask yourself the question, what do you own and what do you control? May Allah Ta'ala forgive us all our shortcomings and our sins, have mercy on our souls in this life and in the hereafter. May Allah Ta'ala keep us in the company of the righteous. May Allah Ta'ala keep us in the company of those who remind themselves of Him and seek His love and seek the love of the Holy Last Messenger Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. May Allah Ta'ala keep us in the company of those who send constant salawats on the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and truly be of those who ask Allah Ta'ala for forgiveness. May Allah Ta'ala save us from ourselves, the torment of the grave, and the punishment of the fire. أقول كذا هذا واستغفر الله وعليكم الحمد لله رب العالمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل سيدنا محمد كما باركت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. Amma ba'd. Dear beloved Muslims, you know, the reason why we chose Mulk is because the Prophet ﷺ said that the gates of paradise are open, right, on this day of Yom Jumu'ah. But I'm sorry to inform you that most of us come to Jumu'ah and we don't know the benefits of Jumu'ah. And we come to Jumu'ah as a ritual instead of a severe obligation that our life and our death depends upon it. So, you know, there are stories in the Quran where Allah Ta'ala performed miracles, right? Or told stories of miracles. One is when when Allah Ta'ala raised the camel from the rock and the people hamstringed it, right? The other one is when the Prophet got swallowed by the fish. Another one is when the Prophet Musa alayhi salatu salam split the Red Sea by Allah Ta'ala's permission. So I'm going to tell you the story, and I want you to think about this death thing, right? So it was a mother finally blesses her son. It was a muqaddam, a brother that was walking through to his town, trying to get back to his city. And at the time of Maghrib, this city was surrounded by a gate. And at the time of Maghrib, they would close the gate and lock the gate. So if you wasn't home, like Mama used to do, if you wasn't home by 9 o'clock, that was it. You wasn't getting in the house. Some of y'all don't know nothing about that, but you know. Some of us do. She gave that last call at 8:30. And you ain't hear it, 9 o'clock, you was outside. But anyway, this muqaddam was coming to his city and he got there late. So he decided, the gate was already locked to the city, he couldn't get to his house, so he decided to go to the barzah, to the grave. Because it wasn't nothing but believers prayed that was from that city that was prayed outside. So he went and fell asleep in the cemetery, right? So he had a dream. Allah Ta'ala allowed him to dream. And Allah Ta'ala allowed him to wake within the dream. And as he awoken in his dream, he saw the inhabitants after Isha. They raised, the believers was risen from their graves, and they were sitting around in a gathering, a halaqah, and they was praising Allah, they was dhikring, and this, that, and the other, right? Now remember, you say, oh, the Imam done went off. He done got some far-fetched Sufi story or something. But listen, Allah Ta'ala says in the Quran, say not of those who died in the way of Allah that they are dead. They are not dead, but you perceive them not. Okay? Now you can find the story. I'll tell you where you can find the story. But anyway, so in this gathering of the deceased that they were sitting around, he's seen this one young man, and he had nobody that he was interacting with. So the young man saw the sheikh saw the muqaddam, saw him. He went to the muqaddam and he said, look, why are you here? You're not mingling, you're not doing anything. He said, because on the way to moving to this city, my father died. And my mother married another brother. She had more children. I got sick and I died and my mother forgot about me. Right? So now the story goes on that he's asking now the muqaddam to, look, this is where my mother lives in the city. I need you to go to her and tell her that she has not sent blessings on the Prophet ﷺ, and she has not made dua for me on Fridays. She has not come and visited me at my grave on Yawm al-Jumu'ah. Now this is a sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, that if you have loved ones, believers in the barzakh, that at Asr you're supposed to go to the barzakh and make dua for them, right? This is a sunnah of the Prophet. So he goes, the muqaddam wakes up. So that next morning after Fajr, he goes and he tries to find this woman, his mother. And he finds her. And he says, listen, I was with your son. And she was like, well, how was you with my son? So he went and told her the story that the son told him. Look, you came to the city, you know, just about as you got here, your husband died. You know, you went through a hard time with your children for a minute. Your oldest son, he went out, he got killed. You married another man. And he said, since that time, you haven't sent blessings on him. You haven't made dua for him. You haven't even visited him in the grave, especially on Jumu'ah. right? So, as he's telling her the story, she starts to cry profusely, right? So then she goes inside, not only get all of her wealth, gets her husband's wealth, and tells the Muqaddam, the sheikh, to give it, just give it out, and give it in the name of her son. When the sheikh went and did this, he did it, and then on Jumu'ah, he gathered within the masjid, and he made dua, the Jamaat made dua for her son, and they went and visited him. That night, the sheikh goes back out to the cemetery, and he falls asleep within the cemetery. And this time he sees the believers are being raised from their abode, and they're all gathering, and now he has light coming from him. And he said, in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful, you have delivered the message to my mother, and Allah sent an angel to me in my grave and said, worry not. For on the day of Jumu'ah, when I raise Bani Adam up, you will be among the righteous. Now, if you don't think that's serious, the Prophet ﷺ said, if a person visits his parents' tomb each Friday, or his grave each Friday, he's reckoned as having done them kindness. The Prophet ﷺ goes on to say that any believer that visits a grave of a believer on Jumu'ah day, on Yawm al-Jumu'ah, that Allah Ta'ala will intercede for them personally on the day of judgment. Now, the Prophet ﷺ talks about missing Jumu'ah, and people missing Jumu'ah for no excuses, right? Especially, this is for the brothers. That Allah Ta'ala, the Prophet ﷺ said that anyone that misses 3 Jumu'ahs, some of the Mufassir say 2, some say 3, without any excuses, that Allah Ta'ala will not answer your prayers or your du'as for 3 days. Now, I'm asking you, can any one of us afford that? None of us cannot afford any day or any time that Allah Ta'ala does not answer our prayers. Jumu'ah is more than just an obligation. Jumu'ah is more than just a ritual. Jumu'ah is a severity or a severe obligation on us to come and worship Allah Ta'ala like death is right there. Because remember that Allah Ta'ala says that on the day of Jumu'ah, our father Adam was created. And on the day of Jumu'ah, we will be raised from the dead. So how do you want Allah Ta'ala to catch you? So this is why we read Surah Mulk, because Allah Ta'ala says that He has power and dominion over all things. Our life, our breath. Where are we, dear beloved Muslims? We see, some of us don't even want to watch the news because we say it's too terrible. Every time we turn on the TV, it's bad news. But you'd rather watch some homosexuality or some nasty love scenes and stuff like. We done got to the point where we don't even lower our gaze when stuff like that comes on TV. Why? Because we have gotten conditioned to this life. Remember what we said. Allah Ta'ala says that we was dead first and then He created life. So Allah Ta'ala has created life in order for us to die. So where do you want Allah Ta'ala to catch you in this dominion? Where do you want Allah Ta'ala to catch you in our disobedience? Jumu'ah, you should be lively at Jumu'ah and you should be serious at the same time. Because these days of Jumu'ah is going to count for us or against us. Again, the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ said that every Friday we should read Surah Qaf. How many people didn't read Surah Qaf today? How many? Then ask yourself, are you going to have time? Because you know some of us got to get back to the master, we got to get back to the slave, we got to get back to the plantation, we got to get back to the job. I'll read it later. How you know you won't have time later? You had time at your